You know, getting ready for any kind of an emergency, we know that water, food, and power are something we're going to have to come up with ourselves. And well, if you look in the telephone book or call a water specialist, they will send you to a place where you can buy a large 3,000 gallon tank and a top and all of that thing. Hopefully put it under a roof if you have one that has a gutter, etc. So, you know, that's a fairly expensive proposition, and I'm not saying don't do it. You may have enough people and enough property where you need that much, but you need to know a few things before that, like how much water do you need? Obviously, if you have 10 people in your family, you got to multiply by 10, but you yourself, for example, need about a day, you need about the size of a volleyball's worth of water, about this much water. And when you think of that, and then you think of that in terms of a week, then you imagine that you're dealing with 5 or 7 of those balls, and they will fit, by the way, in a 5-gallon paint can. You know, the white cans, the plastic cans that most painters use. So all of a sudden, it turns out if you have 3 or 4 of those paint cans around, everybody can have their week's worth of fresh water in their own paint can and take care of it themselves. Meantime, you can store other things in the paint can if you need to. If you want to think about what you might need for a month, you pour the paint can into a tub, a regular bathroom tub, and you'll have roughly a month's worth of water. If you can think of these things in terms of sizes. Now, a month's worth of water, if for you, is the size of a bathtub. Which brings to mind, well, if after the last time you take a bath, you fill the tub back up, and if you like, you can cover it with a little something so the dust doesn't get in, and then there is an earthquake or something that cuts the power off, you've already got either 2 or 3 days worth of water for 5 people or 4 people, or a week's worth of water for yourself. So you're beginning getting an understanding here of how much and where it can be found. If you look in a normal kind of outdoor homestead, you might have a hot tub. Well, how many gallons are in a hot tub? And if that water is available during an emergency, how many gallons is that? Do you have a horse trough? Well, there are horse troughs this big, 300 gallons, and then there are bigger ones that are up to 800 gallons. Do you have one of those? And if you bought one, it might be $100-some for one of the smaller ones, but not more. You can get galvanized tubs to feed horses and other things that can be filled, and if you put a piece of tin on the top in the daytime, the tin will heat the water and you can take a bath at night. So you're solving water and power requirements with something, again, that's just handy and local. At Kmart, they have baby pools. The baby pools cost $5. I put my baby pools next to my gardens, and the rain fills them up, and as long as they're not in the sun, they don't evaporate. And I have a watering can right next to them, and I water like this. So you have baby pools. You have hoses. If you have 100 feet of garden hose and a little nozzle on the end, and you don't have any power, you can spray 2 people down. They can spray each other down, wet up, soap up, and spray off. So if the garden hose is lying in the sun during the day, it's 100 feet long, you have a shower for 2. And by the way, then you might have the same thing the next day. So what I'm doing is teaching you to nibble away at your need for water in using local resources and a little bit of brain. If you have a tarp or a couple of tarps and you can go somewhere and get water, you put the tarp in the back of your pickup truck and you can get 700 gallons. If your pickup truck is parked underneath the edge of your house and you have gutters and whatnot, you can get 700 gallons. Now, Those tarps aren't the strongest in the world, but what does it take to have a tarp around if you need? And if, for instance, your water goes out, but there's some in a water system like the ditch, and you have your 5-gallon buckets, you can go to the ditch and fill up your pickup truck in the back, either in the tarp area or in the 5-gallon buckets. You can carry 2 5-gallon buckets by yourself. So the short of all of this is, think about what you have around you. Go to a store as soon as you can and get 4 5-gallon paint buckets. Get some tarps. Pick up a small watering trough. Pick up some Kmart baby pools or wherever they sell plastic baby pools. Pick up a plastic sprinkler system. Make sure you have 100 feet of garden hose with a very fine mister on the end of it. Now beside all that, you can have ponds, and the ponds can have water hyacinth, and that can clean the water and you can drink that. And then the next thing you have to think about is, what do I need to drink? What do I need? Water clean enough to wash my dishes, water clean enough to wash my clothes, water clean enough to wash other things or take a bath in. Because if you have multiple water containers around your property, you're going to want to have some of them cleaner than others, some of them covered, some of them not covered. You see, this is kind of it's a good game to play with yourself. And it's a game that will only take one weekend trip to Kona to buy the goodies. And a game where you don't have to have a great big 3,000-gallon tank in the middle of your world. So be creative with your water. It's important. Do it now. Go plan it. And P.S. When it comes to worrying about whether the water is clean enough to drink, there are obviously some very old-fashioned methods like iodine and other things that you can add if you feel that's important. You can also get little sieves of certain kind to get the dust and things out. You can also put water hyacinths in the open ponds that you've got, and they'll clean the water by themselves naturally. And when they fill up, you can use those for mulch. And fundamentally, just knowing the difference between the source of the water you get or not. So you need to check your sources out. But we are talking about a situation here where we have an emergency. So you have to also factor in all of those other things. Thanks. And postscript here, little PS. There are ways to purify water. They're very old ways to purify water. But a simple little pile of firewood and a grill and a pot, and you boil the water that you drink. That's pretty basic. There are other simple ways to do it, and iodine, chlorine. You can investigate the chemical side of that if you like. If you use natural water hyacinths, a plant that floats in the top of the water, it'll clean the water for you. Of course, you have to trust that that's happening. But you remember, we're talking about emergency situations here. So we don't, if you want to stand on principle, or you're going to go, ooh, because there's a little bug in it, you're probably not going to make it.
Every night, every day. Born to play in your heart.